Сайн байцгаана уу хүн төлөвчтэй. Өнөөдөр манай de facto нэвтрүүлгийн зочноор Америкийн нэгдсэн улсын Айн Рэнд хүрээлэнгийн захирал ноён Яарон Брүк оролцож байна.
Яарон Брүк, Айн Рэнд хүрээлэнгийн гүйцэтгэх захирал. Доктор Яарон Брук нь Айн Рэнд хүрээлэнгийн гүйцэтгэх захирлаар ажилладаг бөгөөд уг хүрээлэл нь тус зохиолчийн бүтээл, түүний объективизм үзлийг олон нийтэд түгээн таниулдаг билээ. Тэрээр олон улсад танигдсан уран илтгэгч ба төрөл бүрийн сэдвээр түүний дотор эдийн засгийн хямралын их сурвалж, хөрөнгөтний нийгмийн ёс суртахуун, тэгш бус байдлын талаар хэлцүүлгийг хөтлөн явуулдаг байна. Мөн Яарон Америк нэгдсэн улсын хэмжээнд бестселлер болсон чөлөөт зах зээлийн хувьсгал Айн Рэндийн үзэл санаагаар том төрийг үгүй хийх нь хэмээх номыг хамтран зохиогч юм.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Welcome to Mongolia.
Thanks. It's good to be here.
Well, you're going to make a conference here.
That's right.
What is that about?
Well, it's about Айн Rand's ideas. Mongolia has 5 of Айн Rand's books translated into Mongolian.
Yes.
Atlas Shrugged and The Fountainhead, Anthem, We the Living, and Capitalism, the Unknown Ideal. And tomorrow's conference is going to be about her philosophy and its application. And hopefully there'll be a lot of questions from the audience about how to apply these ideas to their own lives and to Mongolia as a country.
So let's talk about Айн Рэнд.
Yes.
Please tell us about her, who was, because for the broader public we want to explain who was she and why she is so much appealing to the minds after so many years.
So Айн Рэнд became probably the most important philosopher and author, novelist in America in the 20th century. But she was born in 1905 in Russia, and she witnessed the start of the Russian Revolution. She was born to a middle-class Jewish family in Russia. Alicia Rosenblum was a family name, and she witnessed the Russian Revolution. But she was always, as a young woman, very independent, very thinking for herself. And she realized, and her family realized, that if she stayed, they would kill her. She had no chance of surviving in the Soviet Union. Mm-hmm. So when there was a small window of opportunity under Lenin in the late 1920s, she got out. And she went to America. And her dream was to become a writer and to write scripts for movies.
So when she was about 20 years old?
She was 22.
She left Russia?
With nothing. With nothing.
With parents?
Her parents stayed in Russia. Her sister stayed in Russia. She was all by herself. She went and stayed with some relatives in Chicago and then moved to Los Angeles because she wanted to be in the movie business.
Okay.
And she started out with kind of odds and ends jobs on the movies and on sets and wardrobe departments. And she would study English in the evenings, learn English, write and practice. Practice. And in the 1930s, she managed to publish some plays. And then she wrote a book called We the Living. And it's about as close to an autobiography as Айн Рэнд ever wrote, in the sense that it's about a young girl growing up under communism in the Soviet Union and how horrible communism really was. And it did not succeed in America because the intellectuals of the time were enamored with communism. American intellectuals of the 1930s thought communism was the future. They thought the Soviet Union was wonderful, and they didn't want to read a book about how terrible it was. So it didn't do very well. She then published a little book called Anthem, which is also in Mongolian.
Yes.
And it was published in the United Kingdom because, again, American publishers were not interested. And it did quite well, and it I think influenced people like George Orwell. He might have read it before
1984.
Before he wrote 1984. And then she wrote a book called The Fountainhead.
Yes.
And it had 12 publishers rejected The Fountainhead. And the 13th publisher published it. And it became a word-of-mouth best-selling book. One of the best-selling books of the period.
Which year was
1945.
it? Okay.
And it did very, very well. And it's a very dramatic story about an individual standing up to social pressures, standing up to conformity, standing up to mediocrity, and really sticking to his artistic integrity.
Yes.
After The Fountainhead, she wrote a book called Atlas Shrugged.
Yes.
That was published in
Familiar,
1957.
Okay.
Now, when that was published, all the publishers competed. They all wanted to publish it because she was such a success in the Fountainhead. And it sold, it was a bestseller immediately. And it really has stayed a bestseller until this day. It sells well over 100,000 copies every single year. Wow. And in 2009, after the financial crisis, Atlas Shrugged sold 500,000 copies in 1 year in the United States. And another thing that's amazing about these books is they've been translated into almost every language on the planet.
Yes.
You know, they're in Mongolian, they're in Chinese, they're in Vietnamese, they're in every European language. So the books are alive, and people read them now, and they sell well today. After she finished Atlas Shrugged, she dedicated herself to trying to take the philosophy that she had put into these books and make it explicit in more philosophical articles and books. And she really dedicated the rest of her life, she died in 1982, to articulating a new philosophy which she called Objectivism. It's a philosophy that you can read about in the novels, but it's explicitly presented in books like Capitalism, Not Known Ideal, which also is available in Mongolian, but also books like The Virtue of Selfishness, which are not yet translated into Mongolian, but are available in English. And she became a very, very influential philosopher, not so much influential in academia. Academia resists her, but among people, and among influential people.
Let's talk about her philosophy.
Yes.
And Mongolian audience, in particular through Atlas Shrugged, try to understand, not easy also though. And what is the reason the academia was refusing her, at the beginning at least?
There are many reasons why, but I think primarily she challenges much of the philosophy of the last 2,000 years. Really, she is most similar philosophically to Aristotle, the great Greek philosopher. But many of the philosophers of the last 1,000 years or so have been more Platonic, have been more very different than Aristotle. So I'll give you some examples. Айн Рэнд believed that reality is what it is. It's solid, it's independent of our consciousness. But many philosophers believe that the consciousness creates the reality, or filters the reality, so that we don't actually see reality as it is, but as our consciousness creates filters. Immanuel Kant, and Descartes famously says, right?
Yes.
I think, therefore I am.
I am. Yeah.
Айн Рэnd says, I am, therefore I think, right? So for Rand, thinking, using our reason, is the way in which we know reality. Not through emotions, not through revelations, but through using our reason. Our reason is efficacious.
Yes.
It tells us about reality. It is our only tool of cognition. It's our only means of knowing the world.
So let's a little bit try to convert it now into the economic life of the society.
Sure.
Now libertarians, mostly a lot of ways presented also by her, the idea, is suggesting that you should have a society, the best fruit of it only comes when the society is more or less fully based on market.
Yes.
And why is that?
The reason is that the fundamental unit in society is the individual. Only the individual knows his life. Only the individual knows his values. Only the individual can determine his course in life. In a sense, it goes back to what I said before. Only the individual can reason. There's no collective consciousness. So the central planner, the government, can't tap into our consciousness to know what we want, how much we're willing to pay for something, what profession we should engage in, who we want to trade with and who we don't want to trade with. Central planning is doomed to fail because it cannot access our value system. Each one of us has our own independent value system. Now, Айн Рэnd believed that some values are universal. Some values are objective. Values like rationality and honesty and integrity and independence. But our choices are independent. They're ours. They're based on our own reasoning, our own thinking. Nobody can think for you. Nobody can think for me.
Correct.
So if you independent human beings who think for themselves want to be and need to be free, the enemy of reason, the enemy of thinking is coercion, force, imposition of ideas, authority that tells you what to do and tells you what to think. That's the enemy. So if you think about what kind of life an individual wants to live, it's a life free of coercion, free of force. And what is government? Government is force. Government is a gun. Government's compulsion. So only a society free of government force and also free from force from your neighbor is a society that allows individuals to flourish.
But however, it's not realistic. The government is there and it will be there.
And government is a necessary good. Айн Рэнд is not against government. She's not an anarchist.
Yes.
What she says is the only job of government, is to be the monopoly over the use of retaliatory force, which means the only job of government is to protect us. It's to protect our rights, our right to life, liberty, property, and pursuit of happiness.
Yes.
Protect us from force, from fraud, from terrorists, from foreign invaders. But the only job of government is to protect our life and our property, nothing else.
Correct. Then, however, at the certain development of our society, many countries, government came into a wider range in our life. Now, government, almost everybody assumed that it's role of the government to have education, social care, medical care, etc. And it goes so deep.
Yes.
That we are in some countries in a complete crisis. So, what is?
And every country is like this.
Yes.
See, I always think philosophically. Айн Рэнд was a philosopher, and she would argue, I think, that the reason for that is that our intellectuals have convinced the world that we can't take care of ourselves. We don't. See, Plato, the philosopher Plato, believed that all of us are too stupid in a sense, too disconnected from the truth to know what's good for us. So we needed philosopher kings to tell us how to live, what to do, where to get our health care, who to educate our kids, all of that. Айн Рэнд says no. We each have the capacity to reason. We each have access to the truth. And if we have access to the truth, we don't need anybody to tell us how to educate our kids. We can do research.
So we are the truth.
We have access to the truth. Our own reasoning capacity gives us access to the truth.
Yeah, so but what is truth in this case?
Truth is what's real in reality. Truth is what's out there. So people can think, so people can go and choose schools. They can look at 5 schools and choose which one's best for them.
Yes.
They don't need a government bureaucrat,
yes,
a philosopher king to tell them what's good for their own child.
So suppose, let's take education system. This government is not doing any public schools. If there is any such a case in the world, or can we do in a way that the people individually get together and organize schooling?
Well, why not just individually, not just people get together and organize schooling. Entrepreneurs would start schools. Why not have the profit motive in schools? I mean, think about the innovation that competition would result in. If we had real competition and innovation, think of all the new educational products that we would get. Think of the exciting new educational stuff that we would get instead of the same old gray, mediocre, uninteresting public education that we get.
So basically what you're saying is entrepreneurship, profit-oriented.
Yes.
As a result of competition.
Yes.
They can make better and affordable, good education for people.
What does competition and freedom do in every arena?
Prices.
Cheaper and better.
Yes.
Always cheaper and better. Your iPhone today is cheaper and better than it was 10 years ago. And if we had that in education, we'd have education cheaper and better. If we had that in healthcare, we'd have cheaper education and better education. So in every realm that we look at, healthcare, education, mineral rights, mining, everywhere we look, if we privatize, if we allow competition, if we allow innovation, if we allow entrepreneurs to make money, they will drive costs down, they will drive quality up, and all of us benefit.
How about while they are competing or before they're competing, if there is any harms to public safety, personal safety, individual health, etc., how to regulate that part?
That part is the role of government. So if my factory is sending pollutants and you're breathing them and getting sick, then in a free market you would sue my factory.
Yes.
And if objectively we determined that what I was doing was harming you, I would owe you money.
Yes.
And then it would be okay for the government to come and say, look, cyanide is not good. It's a poison. You cannot use it. And they would pass a law protecting your life or property. I don't consider that regulations. I consider that laws that protect life and property. And there's a difference between regulation, which is almost always preemptive.
Now, the issue about back to education, there are people, say, born or originally cannot take care of themselves, disabled people, etc. Who will take care of those people?
Well, let's first be clear about how many people we're talking about. Very few.
Miserable, yes.
99.9% of the people can take care of themselves. 99.9% of people can work. I know people even with Down syndrome, really bad brain, who go work. They maybe do very simple work, but they can work. But let's say the people who really cannot take care of themselves. Well, we will take care of them. I mean, their family, their friends of the family. Maybe we have some charities. Maybe we have civil society. We'll create organizations that are voluntary, that will take care of them. What I want is no government coercion. I don't want the government telling me who I should take care of and who I shouldn't take care of. I don't want government telling you that you have to take care of people that I think are okay. What you to take care of.
Sure.
So we should each make our own decisions.
So let's then go back even deeper now. The philosophy expressed in those books now are coming as a philosophy called Objectivism.
Yes.
What is the main subject of this philosophy and why is that so important?
I say the main subject of philosophy, the core of the philosophy is ethics, it's morality. It's about the idea that your life is yours. And your moral responsibility, your ethical responsibility is not like we're taught by most religion and by most philosophers to serve other people, to take care of other people. Your moral responsibility is to serve yourself and to make your life the best life that it can be. Айн Рэнд believed in rational self-interest, rational long-term self-interest. So she would say, your responsibility in life is to think, use your mind, use your reason, to figure out what is the best course of action that I can take in my life to make my life the best, the happiest, the most flourishing it can be.
Because people are born to be happier, but to have a better life.
Yes, I mean, we want a better life, we want a happier life.
But if not, everybody not educated enough or knows enough what is good for them or not.
But that's their responsibility or their family's responsibility to take care of that, right? To get that education. But everybody knows what's good for them better than what other people think.
Yeah, in particular the central planning government.
Yes, but morally the important thing is we are taught that the focus of morality is about sacrifice.
Yes.
It's about living for the sake of other people. And what Айн Рэнд teaches us is no. The purpose of morality is to teach us how to live the best life we can live in this world. How we can flourish as human beings. How we can use our reason, how we can use our rational mind to live a good, successful, flourishing life. And that means having a career and really focusing on work because you get self-esteem from work. And self-esteem is what allows you to be happy, a sense that you are, you belong on this earth, that you are competent to live in this world. But to do that, you have to work. One of the real harms of welfare, of subsidies, is when you give somebody a check, what are you telling them? You're telling them, you can't take care of yourself. You're worthless. But when you go and you work for a living, even a simple job, you know that you are feeding your own family. You know that you're putting a roof above the head of your own family. Gives you a sense of pride. Gives you the self-esteem. I'm worthy to live. That's where happiness comes from. Happiness comes from that sense of belonging in this world.
So it is not like it was recently explained in another newspaper that you only take care of yourself, you don't take care of the others.
You take care of others if they're of value to you. But human life is of value to me. I love other human beings, right? Other human beings are productive. I benefit from them. They create things that I cannot create. Right? So, no, taking care of yourself, that's the standard. Okay. But in order to take care of myself, I must trade with other people. I must have relationships with other people. But what we want is relationships that are fundamentally win-win, that fundamentally both parties benefit from, rather than when the government steps in. It creates win-lose relationship. It takes my money, I lose, and it gives you the money. I think you lose too. Right? So it's a lose-lose relationship. Or it subsidizes one industry, but it takes from another.
Okay.
So it destroys competition.
Yes.
It destroys innovation.
Yes.
So when government uses force, generally when force is used, it's win-lose or lose-lose. So if I steal your money,
Yes.
I might win in the short run, but you lose. Trade, if I buy something from you, if I buy a phone from you, I pay you $300 because the phone is worth more than $300 to me.
Correct, yes.
And you make a profit. Both of us are better off.
Yes.
That's win-win. So for Айн Рэнд, not only materially should we have win-win relationships, but spiritually too. You don't want a win-lose relationship with your wife. You want win-win.
Yes.
You want mutual benefit.
Yes.
You want your needs to be satisfied and her needs to be satisfied. You want to feel like the relationship is good for both of you. Otherwise,
So, and however, why is that happening? Even in the US, there are people who have a different opinion than you are gaining ground. What happens?
Well, because religion in the United States, religion teaches the opposite. Christianity teaches that the purpose of life is to sacrifice. The purpose of life is to be selfless, not self-interested, selfless. So that when we look at a Bill Gates, for example, he changed the world. He made the world a better place to live for billions of people by creating Microsoft. But when we look at him and think of him morally, ethically, it's not impressive. Why? Because morality for us is about sacrifice. It's about being selfless. And he wasn't selfless. He made a lot of money. So we think, oh, bad Bill Gates. But then he becomes a philanthropist. Then he's okay. Because he's giving money away. And that's good. Right? So creating money, that's not good. Giving it away is good. That's perverse. But that's what the morality of altruism, the morality of Christianity, the morality of so many people who teach ethics and teach philosophy out there.
So how you would define that, Bill Gates?
I would say the opposite. I'd say Bill Gates is a hero, is moral, because he built Microsoft. I love Bill Gates for Microsoft. His charity is nice, not important. What's important is Microsoft.
But not important is for you, maybe for those people who receive the money.
Remember, he changed the world in Microsoft. Billions of people. In his philanthropy, he'll help a few thousand. That's okay, I'm not against it.
So what you are saying is his philanthropy makes less competitive Microsoft.
No, what I'm saying is making money is more important, more valuable, contributes more to my life and all of our lives than philanthropy. America in 1776 was a poor, poor country. By 1914, richest country in the world. Because of philanthropy? Because of charity? No. Because of businessmen. Because of the Bill Gates of the time. Because of competition. Because of innovation. Because of business. Because of profit. Profit is wonderful. It is a reward for value creation. You don't make profits in a free market unless you create lots of values.
And then what's wrong with Bill Gates when after making profit he's giving the money to people needed?
If he wants to give it, that's fine.
Okay.
But he's a hero in my mind because he created the money.
Agree,
The
yes.
fact that he wants to give it away is okay,
Well, if
but
he
it's
had
not important.
If he had not created money, there is nothing to give.
True, but also giving is not important. It's just not, it doesn't change the world. What country on the whole planet has become better because of foreign aid? Zero. How many countries have become rich because of capitalism and people like Bill Gates? Every country that's become rich. So profit is how you get rich, not philanthropy. So for me, morally, Bill Gates is a hero because he made money, because he was successful, because he created value. Philanthropy is fine but not important. Business is heroic.
Okay.
And that's Айн Рэнд. Айн Рэnd views business as a heroic activity. And the problem is that we live in a culture that doesn't trust the businessman, doesn't think what he does is good, doesn't think what he does is moral. And that's why we're losing, because this morality, this moral view that only giving is good, making is not, opposite of what I think.
Well, however, many people think the opposite.
That's why we're losing. That's why America is moving towards socialism, why Western Europe is moving towards socialism. We have to convince them the other way around.
So speaking about socialism, do you think America is becoming more socialist under Trump than under Obama?
It became more socialist under Obama, but I don't think Trump is going to make a big difference. I don't think Trump is going to turn it around. He might hold it where it is today, might make it a little bit better.
But not deeper.
No, not deeper. And look, in some ways, he's worse than Obama, right? Tariffs, anti-trade, that's socialist. Anti-immigration, that's socialist. He's not for real competition. He's not for real trade. Global trade is wonderful. Trader principle, win-win.
Please tell us a bit about yourself. You're born in Israel, immigrated to the US.
Yes.
And now you are teaching all around the world. You are representing not only the Institute Айн Рэнд, but also the philosophy. And you have been publishing in many major newspapers, Wall Street Journal, Financial Times, and you are frequently on TV. What is the mission of your life now?
My mission is to teach people about Айн Рэнд's philosophy, Айн Рэnd's ideas, and to try to get as many people to understand the ideas and hopefully accept them. I mean, long term, I want to change the world. I want to make a world a capitalist, free market, self-interested world where individuals are pursuing their own happiness.
Not easy positions, but however, you
Very
wrote
difficult.
recently a book called Equality is Unfair.
Equal is unfair.
Equal is unfair.
Yes.
Tell us about the book, please.
Well, in my view, we are all different. All we have to do is look around and see all our friends and our relatives, we're all different. When we are free, we are all going to have different outcomes. Some of us are going to be very rich because we produced a lot of value. Some of us will choose to be teachers and we won't be that rich. Some of us don't have the ability to become rich and produce very little value and therefore, relatively speaking, are poor. That's nature.
By nature, we are born
unequal.
Unequal.
And we should, and
you cannot force them into
exactly.
equality.
So you can force them into equality, but the only way to do it is by force. It's by taking. It's by stealing. And you know, the communism was a good example of this. The attempt to make everybody equal meant tens of millions of people had to die. You kill the best. That's the way you lower the standards so everybody can be equal. And even then, not everybody's equal, right? There's a famous line from Animal Farm. All animals are equal, except those animals that are more equal.
More equal.
More equal. And that's communism. And so even in communism, you couldn't establish it. So I'm against force. I'm against coercion. I'm against authority that uses force to get its way. So if we leave us free, we're going to be unequal. So let's celebrate the inequality.
My last question is about our northern neighbor, Russia. Such a big country.
Yes.
A lot of intellectuals.
Yes.
It is very intellectuals mind the country a lot.
Yes.
And yet, I don't think there are many people who will share your philosophy. And why is that so?
Because Russia has always been very mystical. Its intellectuals have always been very mystical and very altruistic. They believe in the leader. They believe in being told what to do. They believe in authority. And a country, and I think it's deep ingrained. They had a Tsar, they had Lenin and Stalin and communism, now they have Putin. One authoritarian after the other. They've never been free because there's something in the culture that I think is anti-freedom. And it's sad. It's sad because all people deserve to be free. All people need to learn about the value of freedom to their own lives.
To their own life. Well, exactly. This is the value we are looking for in this country as well, because we want to see prosperous Mongolia. And in European prosperous Mongolia is through the individuality, freedom of choice of everybody.
When all individuals prosper, by definition, society prospers. The society is nothing but a collection of individuals.
Correct.
So let's focus on making sure individuals prosper by allowing them freedom, and everybody, the society as a whole, the country will be prosperous. And I wish Mongolia the best of luck in achieving that prosperity.
Thank you, Yaron.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Хүндэтгэгчтэй өнөөдөр манай де факто нэвтрүүлгийн зочноор Америк нэгдсэн улсын Айн Рэнд институтийн захирал ноён Яарон Брүк оролцлоо. баярлалаа.